Advocate is very important to David. David Hyde Pierce rose straight to the top of Hollywood comedy with his performance on Frasier in the 90s. With good reason, he was the epitome of comedic timing. But ever since Frasier ended, he had abruptly disappeared from the public eye, as if taking a vacation from Hollywood's high-end productions. What made him do a Houdini all of a sudden? Was there something he was trying to hide from the world that was harmful? Come along as we reveal the rationale behind David Hyde Pierce's choice to fade into the background and avoid the spotlight. Pierce, David Hyde, the beginning. Some of the best Hollywood films and actors in the world were born in the 1990s. With his comic timing on full show in the 1993 comedy series Frasier, David Hyde Pierce became one of the prominent faces of slapstick humor, at a time when the world seemed to be starting to find its footing, and the comedy genre had taken a whole new direction. It was almost impossible to find a magazine that didn't have a story about him. You simply couldn't miss him since he was so well liked. He was ideally suited for the series as a psychiatrist. In fact, it seemed as though he was made for it. Additionally, he had dramatic quality in his voice, features, and delivery of each phrase. He made a lasting impression on Hollywood comedy because he was so excellent. Even though his performance on Frasier made it seem like he had it easy, he had the world eating out of his hand. But that was not the truth at all. David Hyde Pierce is the result of suffering and perseverance. His father, George Pierce, and mother, Laura Marie Pierce, were both insurance agents when he was born in Saratoga Springs, New York. He was inspired by an up-and-coming actor like David Hyde Pierce, who simply never managed to establish himself in Hollywood. Although David Hyde Pierce's performance and interpretation of his part in Frasier have frequently been ascribed to his dedication and perhaps a boyhood obsession, his early fantasies were distinct. He was so enamored with music as a child that he picked up the organ and began performing for the Bethesda Episcopal Church in his hometown. His first acting experience began as a child at Caba Bayun, an all-boys summer camp, where he directed their production of HMS Pinhor, also known as Lass, That Loved a Sailor, a two-act comedy opera with music by Arthur Sullivan, and performed in their camp productions of Gilbert and Sullivan. He knew exactly what he wanted to do after high school. He desired to perform music more. He therefore chose to major in music at Yale University, focusing on piano performance. However, for some reason, he abruptly changed his major to theater studies and English literature. However, how did this man who switched from music to theater suddenly become well known? It was the grueling start of an incredible career. After graduating from Yale University, he struggled after deciding to pursue acting. So, in pursuit of dramatic greatness, he relocated to New York. He sought a means to hold his life together while he followed his aspirations. He thus acquired employment. Some very strange ones too. There is no greater job for me. I couldn't ask for a better team. There is no greater portion for me. I will therefore suffer if they stereotype me. He started out as a tie salesman for Bloomingdale's, a network of upscale American stores. However, that was insufficient. He required additional funds to support his acting career. He therefore accepted a position as a security guard while he was a student at Michael Howard Studios, a performing arts acting studio. It was not the easiest thing to do, as one might assume. He was working hard to maintain his position in the spotlight, while balancing his career with a very demanding blue-collar job. He was looking for that one big break that would put him in the spotlight. In the 1980s, he quickly secured a part as Laertes in an off-Broadway Hamlet production. Since it was his first actual gig, he gave it his all in the hopes of a better result. After smashing it as Laertes, Broadway's doors opened up for him, and he seized the chance with both hands, making his Broadway debut in Beyond Therapy, directed by Christopher Durang in 1982. When television called after his Broadway breakthrough, he was prepared to take on the world and truly prove his abilities. When Norman Lear created a political comedy niche in the early 1990s that was sure to make the world laugh, it was his big break on television. As soon as the movie's idea progressed, Norman was positive about his cast list. He went straight to David Hyde Pierce to have him portrayed as a suicidal congressman, which was hardly surprising. He was incredible, I must say. He delivered his lines flawlessly, and his comedic timing was simply too excellent to pass up. It was nearly unlike anything that had ever been seen on television. Here's the kicker, though. It is clear that the presentation was excellent, particularly because it managed to make some serious comedy out of something as serious as politics. Maybe we ought to give the suicide prevention hotline a call. Fred is on vacation, so no. Thus, the well-liked reviews that continued to appear week after week But the show was abruptly canceled. David Hyde Pierce was taken aback, as was to be expected, and he was uncertain if he could salvage the effort he had put into his first significant television appearance. His intriguing display remained in place as a point of reference for anyone considering hiring him, even if the ship had sailed on the powers that be. But initially, his acting talent had little to do with his next big break, which eventually came on Frasier. It felt more like a gift from nature. A face that looked like a younger version of Kelsey Grammer, who was in the show's title role as Frasier Crane. To what extent did this likeness help him regain his position in the spotlight, make a splash with Frasier? Everyone enjoyed the joy that came with the play at the moment, and Frasier was already on the road. But it didn't take long for the producers to take an entirely different approach, something unexpected for Hollywood. They decided to give him a sibling in the series after finding a man who resembled Kelsey Grammer identically. How Are You Doing, Fresh? The show's creative team, which included David Lee, David Angel, and Peter Casey, chose to cast David Hyde Pierce as Niles Crane, the younger brother of the titular character, Frasier Crane. After you yelled, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I was good before that. Even if his inherent facial structure got him in, he needed to show some acting prowess to stay there. Do you recall the brief series that initially put him on a certain path? It was also crucial that he played the suicidal congressman flawlessly. Whoa. Additionally, the Frasier creative team and producers were quite impressed. Now that he was totally committed, it was time to work hard and maintain his position at the top of the show. He was positive that he was the only one who could walk into an existing franchise and spark it up right away. He went inside it. His addition of a whole new dimension had an instant influence on the show. He was the ideal counterpoint to Kelsey Grammer's portrayal of Frasier Crane. He did a decent job delivering the script, but he demonstrated his full potential. Just keep breathing, Miles, and believe me, this is not the end. In 1996, when Kelsey Grammer crashed his Dodge Viper near his driveway in Agora Hills, California, he had to step up due to unforeseen circumstances. He wasn't seriously hurt, but the DUI arrest that followed was a big factor in his decision to check himself into the Betty Ford Clinic. For the next 3 weeks, Frasier took a break because of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Additionally, Pierce's character Niles was swiftly rewritten to present his brother's radio show in episode 4, Head Games, while Frasier was away at a convention. It is clear that the plan was impromptu and required flawless execution. Pierce delivered it a spectacular performance, because he knew he had to be at the top of his game. The creative team's choice to write him a part that didn't even exist in the first place was perfectly justified by that performance. His success on the show earned him multiple accolades from critics. To put things in perspective, he received 4 Emmy Awards, including one for supporting actor in a comedy series, from 1995 to 2004. Everyone was talking about him because of his impressive run and reliability, and he was that kind of guy. As a result, it is even more difficult to understand why a man who has worked so hard to achieve his success would decide to abruptly avoid the limelight in a place where he is adored. Did he have a side we didn't see? David Hyde Pierce's personal conflicts. David Hyde Pierce was completely different from what everyone expected of a comic off-screen. Even though he thrived on the world's most prestigious stages, winning numerous awards and killing his part as Niles on Frasier, he was the ideal comic magician, who, depending on the circumstance, could make you laugh just by sighing or by simply staring at you. He had the ability to make any room erupt in laughter, but for some reason, he was always by himself, with weary eyes and a smile that made everything seem okay. When he appeared on award shows or the red carpet, nobody was able to determine whether or not anything was amiss. After all, he's a comic. For some reason, everyone assumed that his life would be full of sunshine and rainbows. But there was more. David Hyde Pierce recognized the importance of optics in this situation. In what way, with whom, and where are you perceived? He recognized the significance of stories produced by optics. His performance at important events and awards was not flawless, but something was lacking. The media was there to remind him how savage they can be when any of the many constellations of Hollywood stars are targeted, even though he may not have considered it an issue. His ability to blend in with the crowd came suddenly. When David appeared on the red carpet or at any public event, he was also nominated for the Vana Sonia Maschen Spike. Ceased to exist. Since he was frequently spotted alone, he was now being closely examined. He may have had some relief for consistently appearing alone, though, if he had been an action star and not in the comic niche. In the United States, he has become somewhat of a cult figure, and is one of the funniest men in the world. He has been on television since the early 1990s. Making him a target was therefore all but simple. With virtually no specific reports of a personal relationship, there have been conjectures regarding his motivations for appearing to be alone at public events all the time. But they have all been utterly inaccurate. Years went by, but the rumors didn't change. There is no doubt that David Hyde Pierce was concealing something, a secret that he likely did not find easy to share with the world at the time. The world was not mature enough to deal with the sensitive reality of the fights waged in quiet in the People Assembly. What was this well-kept secret that prevented him from being in the public eye for so long? The terrible secret of David Hyde is revealed. A portion of the human race would undoubtedly lean toward the new era where the world is woke. Even if there has been discussion about when the world was at its best and there was some hope for humanity, with replies ranging from the 90s to the 2020s. Since the Second World War had just ended and people were eager to explore new things, the 1950s through the early 2000s had a little bit of everything. Vibrant romance suddenly became a significant aspect of theater, as the Carpe Diem philosophy became a catchphrase. You might even have some shures making when homosexual men remain with Nigerian women. However, there were barely enough old guard communists who stopped the decay from spreading. Due to the fear of being blacklisted, or simply being the oddball among the perfectly normal group, it was quite difficult for anyone with a different orientation toward natural matters, like interracial marriages or diverse sexual orientations, to express themselves. It was an actual battle. David Hyde Pierce had achieved his goal of being the biggest star on television, offered several very similar roles, and I performed this character for 8 months of the year. I'd rather not do it. Belongs to the group of people who have a different perspective on how love functions. He had long concealed the fact that he was attracted to other men. Even though he was receiving all these honors, he had to pay the price of fame. Hollywood fame is undoubtedly the poison chalice. It means that the world is now completely committed in your business, even while it also brings with it significant notoriety, wealth, endorsements, and commercial partnerships. Discovering the love partners of well-known celebrities, especially a 4-time Emmy winner, is a great way to get people's mouths going. More than anybody else, David Hyde Pierce was aware of the consequences of taking a risk and expressing his emotions to the public. Ergo, following Frasier's termination on May 13, 2004, carefully fading from the spotlight, he chose Broadway over television. He planned to leave television and return to Broadway in 2005, where he collaborated with well-known performers and producers like Tim Curry to create the stage version of Spamalot, a stage musical based on the 1975 movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and featuring a score by John Deere and Eric Idle. The title of the musical is a portmanteau of Spam and Camelot, and it delivers a very scathing spoof of Arthur and Tale. He concluded that the world had begun to shift and become more open to new ideas after he had managed to disappear from television. In 2007, he publicly came out as gay, citing actor, writer, and producer Brian Harrove as his partner. As anticipated, the announcement sparked a wide range of emotions on social media and concerns, particularly regarding how long he had been concealing his relationship and whether it was a result of nature or nurture. The true query, though, is whether David Hyde Pierce will ever be able to return to popular television, and is he prepared to accept it under any conditions? The dilemma of David Hyde Pierce's limelight. He remained steadfast at Broadway after coming out as gay, a position he maintained until 2016. For some reason, many believe that he might be thinking about retiring, especially after he turned down the opportunity to appear in the Frasier revival. Regardless of his motivations, the iconic program has continued to receive excellent reviews and is still considered a part of the Hollywood comedy gold of the 1990s. Looking at the moment, and That's How I Got It, which has withstood the flood of more daring television comedy from contemporary performers like Donald Glover, Tiffany Haddish, Awkwafina, Kevin Hart, and Pete Davidson, among other incredibly gifted comic actors of the modern era. In 2023, the show's creators made the decision to revive it. The United States was rocked by a revival that was in the books. Pop culture was poised to undergo another upheaval as Frasier made his triumphant return. It was an easy strategy. Bring back the old favorites, such as David Hyde Pierce and Kelsey Grammer, who were the Crane brothers, and lit up the 1990s while keeping everyone on edge while they awaited the release of new episodes. David Hyde Pierce declined the opportunity to make a second appearance on television in 2023 as one of the project's faces, although Kelsey Grammer had consented to a comeback to the big screen. However, other people think that he avoided it because he didn't want the publicity that would accompany it, as he couldn't risk ruining his carefully planned private life with his girlfriend. The reasoning was faulty, though, considering he had previously made a comeback to television in 2017 as Dr. Jones on the limited series of a documentary drama promoting LGBT rights called When We Rise. He also made an appearance on Netflix as himself alongside Julie Andrews in Julie's Green Room. B. Co-starred with Pice Midler in the Hello Dolly Broadway revival. He was nominated for a Tony Award after the musical, which debuted on April 20, 2017, at the Schubert Theater, became a huge sensation. The best Broadway show to collect money for the 2017 Easter Bonnet. Even though his comeback has been filled with some truly amazing moments, it hasn't generated nearly as much buzz as his role in Frasier Ergo, which is one of the reasons he has chosen not to return to the project. Even though the film was eventually recreated, Paramount Plus only carried it for 2 seasons. Even though he chose not to participate in the resurrected series, he was unable to escape the criticism that accompanied the series' cancellation due to low viewership, with many accusing him of failing because he did not appear on the show. He chose not to address the concerns, though, and he still makes brief appearances on shows and LGBTQ awareness campaigns, putting all the controversy behind him and blending in as usual. Do you believe that despite being aware of the potential criticism, did he make the correct choice in coming out as gay? Is there a possibility that he will ultimately choose to play a significant role on television once more? Please let us know what you think in the comments area. For more, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Click the following video that appears on your screen as well. You'll like it.